I start my day, I say the first half of my day is definitely emailing and LinkedIn, and then the second half of my day is calling. In the morning, I'll get in. I'll already have my list built from the night before, and so I'll crank out a few hundred emails, around 100 to 150 net new, which are usually more tailored messages, ideally new hires or close lost. I'll do my touches on previous email threads for a good hour or two. In the afternoon, I'll usually call for a good 3 to 4 hours. Those call lists are built in a lot of different ways, but again, trying to just hit prospects who I think will be a good fit for us. So those are usually new hires or high spending industries. At the end of my day, I do some organization, some data hygiene to make sure everything's organized.
I'm kind of a psycho, so a little bit different. Typically, my like full on outbounding days would be email slash prospecting or building call lists from say 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then 11 a.m. I like to start dialing, and then I'll typically call for 7 hours with a little breaks here and there. But I like to be heavy on the phones. I find the most enjoyable type of outbounding, the most effective paired with multi-channeling, so using email follow-ups after calling people on the phone. I'm a big proponent of calling in general. I think it's the best outbounding strategies in conjunction with emailing after you talk with them on the phone. So yeah, a little bit different, but pretty similar with how we build up a call list depending on like the industry, and kind of how we like to structure our calls. I typically like to only focus on like the key stakeholders that we like to target here at Ramp. Some people really like to call only controllers. I think Annie likes to have them split up where she calls the CFOs and then calls the controllers, just because then you have a persona to sell to more that's more effective because you know what those personas like and care about. So I think having a split personas is important for some of the newer callers as well. Once you have a little bit of a better gauge on what personas find important, you can kind of be a little bit more flexible with how you're calling. So as I put in hours and hours and hours into calling, I've been able to be a little bit more personalized on the fly. But I do think it is effective to stick to one persona.
Yeah, it kind of depends, but the two ways that I'll split my list are by industry and by title. Like one of my favorite features on Orem is how you can split it by controller or CFO, and like even when we do that in outreach, it's not always accurate. And so Orem's kind of like a second layer in that sense of knowing that whoever you're reaching out to is like actually that proper title. And again, it's just easier for me to know like where I'm going to focus my pitch on if I know what position that they're in.
Typically doing 4 dials at a time. If it is like a colder list, so less likely to pick up, I'll increase the amount of parallel dials, but I like to kind of stay within like the 3 to 4 range. If it's got a lot of hot contacts that Orm is able to detect and say, hey, these people are more likely to pick up, I'll turn down the parallel dials to 1 to 2 to 3, depending on what the pickup rates are. I'd say the sales floor is actually huge. That's probably fan favorite here at Ramp is being able to, because we actually are a fully remote team. A lot of us do work in the office, but I'd say majority of the reps actually work from home. So being able to come together and have like camaraderie in a sales floor makes calling so much easier and so much more enjoyable. In terms of like the Boost Connect, that's a feature that I think is like absolutely game changing from a lot of different other dialers. It does help with connection rates.
Yeah, I definitely echo what Magnum said. I think the call rooms have been instrumental in getting people who don't usually dial to want to dial. I think Magnum and I always did it, but I think it's been really helpful, at least for individuals on my team who were kind of uncomfortable on the phones or just like really didn't enjoy it to enjoy it more. I also think Orem being able to schedule tasks is super helpful. Because I think as an SDR organization is really important and like maintaining a schedule of like when you're reaching back out to these prospects. So being able to just schedule a task if they say call me tomorrow at 2 on the fly and it taking like 10 seconds is super efficient. It's a great question. I would say find the workflow that works best for you. So instead of just looking at the top performers or just looking at what's admired most by other people, like finding a workflow that aligns with your strengths and that you can maintain on a daily basis. Like part of this job is a grind, right? And like be repetitive. And so finding a workflow that you can continue to stay motivated in and day out, I think is like the most important part of this job because you just have to keep the momentum going and stay positive.
Yeah. Don't care. as much for every single call and don't think it's as important as it really is. Because at the end of the day, after the call, they've completely forgot what you even called them about in the next hour. And ultimately, you already forgot about it too. So don't go into calls so stressed out. At the end of the day, it's literally a phone call. It's gonna be like not the top of their mind. So just being a lot more loose and honestly just having a lot less personal care, like taking calls and being a little bit more open to um, objections.